UFC champions. Some look and feel untouchable. Others look like they're on borrowed time. This is just my read on the divisions. I'm looking at momentum, matchups, timing, and I'm just going to go off my gut instinct. This past year, we've had champions fall, new stars rise, and some absolute chaos across the UFC in 2025. So today, I'm predicting who I think will be holding gold in every weight class by the end of 2026. But before we get into it, I'm not claiming to be a hardcore analyst or an MMA expert. Some picks will make sense, others might get me absolutely cooked. But that's what makes this sport so entertaining to watch. So let's not waste any more time and let's pick these champs. Okay, so we'll start off at flyweight, the UFC men's flyweight. Obviously, after the fallout of UFC 323, the current champ is Joshua Van. We all saw what happened. The TKO stoppage, injury, Pantoja falling on his elbow. Yeah, so basically, I am a big fan of Joshua Van. I think having a flyweight champion who's a great boxer with snap in his hands, it's easy to get behind, you know what I mean? It's exciting, it's marketable, and it makes every title defence feel dangerous. Now, Van is only 24, and you can definitely see that the experience just isn't fully there yet. But at the same time, that could actually work in his favour. He's basically going to be learning whilst holding the belt. Makes the rest of the division not have a ton of footage on him. No patterns to really go off. No one can really study him yet. So we'll see how that plays out. And at some point, him and Pantoja are definitely going to run it back in a rematch. Pantoja's camp has already said the injury isn't too serious. Nothing was broken. And yeah, that rematch feels inevitable. Manel Kape also deserves a mention. He looks absolutely insane against Brandon Royval, knocking him out in the first round. I mean, nobody does that to Royval. Van looked good against Royval, and the UFC liked that enough to give him a title shot. So if that's the standard, Kape should be clearly next in line after Pantoja. Here's where my pick will shock some people. The guy I think will be holding the flyweight belt come the end of 2026 is Tatsuro Taira. Now, he's coming off a huge win against Brandon Moreno. He's ranked number 3, and he's only got one loss on his record in the UFC. I've just got a feeling that the UFC sets up a title eliminator between Taira and Kape, while Van and Pantoja run it back. And honestly, I think Taira gets his hand raised. On top of that, the UFC is clearly interested in holding another event in Japan in 2026. And tell me who's the better name to quietly build up and eventually headline that card than Taira. It just makes too much sense. So yeah, I'm going to call it early. I'm going to be bold. Tatsuro Taira will be the flyweight champion of 2026. Okay, moving on to bantamweight. Obviously, Peter Yan has just put on an absolute masterclass against Merab, winning the belt for the second time. He's now riding a 4-fight win streak. And yeah, when Yan's confident, he's a seriously dangerous guy. We've seen it before. When he's locked in and firing, his boxing, he can outclass almost anyone in the division. Merab, on the other hand, had a stellar 2025. He was on a 14-fight win streak, and he fought 4 times last year, living up to his nickname as a complete machine. I like Merab. I think he's proven it at bantamweight, but after a year like that, I think he's going to take some well-earned time off. Then there's Sean O'Malley. Again, I'm a big fan of Sugar too. Super clean, super sniper-like. Sometimes fighters just have your number, and Merab was clearly that guy for him, beating him twice. That said, the UFC sees Sean as extremely marketable. So realistically, one good win and he'll be right back in that title picture. Obviously scheduled to fight Song Yadong at UFC 324, and we'll see what's next for Sugar. A bit of a wildcard pick would be Peyton Talbot. Now, he's just beat a former triple champion, Henry Cejudo, and he looked good doing it. I don't think he reaches full title contention in 2026, but I do think by the end of this year coming, his name will be firmly in that conversation. My pick for who ends up with a bantamweight belt in 2026 is Umar Nurmagomedov. He lost a very close fight to then champion Merab early this year. And honestly, I think Merab's insane 2025 momentum played a big role in that. But since then, Umar's bounced back, obviously with a win over Mario Bautista. And being part of Khabib's camp, you just know the game plan. the discipline and improvements are always going to be there. Against pretty much anyone else in the division, I think Umar dominates. He feels like he's maybe one fight away. I can absolutely see him holding the bantamweight gold by the end of 2026. Okay, featherweight's a tricky one. You got the current champion, Volkanovski, coming off a win against Diego Lopez after Ilia Topuria vacated the belt. Grandpa Volk, say what you want, he's still the GOAT of the featherweight division. The guy is just game no matter what. Doesn't matter who's in front of him. That said, and I hate to say it, but I do think mileage might finally catch up to him in 2026, and I really hope I'm wrong. He's got a rematch with Diego Lopez at UFC 325, and honestly, I think that's where we see the belt change hands. Lopez couldn't quite get it done the first time. Second fight is a different story. You've also then got Movsar Evloev, who's still undefeated, is riding a ridiculous 19-fight win streak. All 9 of his UFC fights have gone to the decision, which I don't think the UFC loves or, favours. I could be wrong, but it feels like he needs a big finish to get that recognition his record actually deserves. A couple of standouts, you've got Leroy Murphy on a 9-fight win streak, Yusuf Zalal on an 8-fight win streak. Both of these guys have to know that they're right there again, one big win away from a title fight, or at least a title eliminator. I'm going to go for another out there pick, but my pick for who ends up as featherweight champion in 2026 is Jean Silva. He's coming off a loss to Diego Lopez back in September, but honestly, in a parallel world, I think he wins that fight. He had Lopez rocked and he just couldn't quite get him out of there. Didn't go in for the kill when he should have. And there was some real drama at the end too. He's scheduled to fight Arnold Allen at UFC 324, and if he wins that, which I reckon he will, a rematch with Diego Lopez after Lopez taking the belt off Vol. Insanely marketable for the UFC. Everything lines up perfectly. So yeah, again, calling it now. Jean Silva becomes featherweight champion and is the first Fighting Nerds representative to hold UFC gold. Okay, lightweight next. The current champ, obviously Ilia Topuria, he secured double champ status by knocking out a lightweight vet, Charles Oliveira, in the first round. If Ilia were active this year, he would be my pick to stay as champion. But obviously with him stepping away for personal reasons, until things get sorted out, my prediction will have to go elsewhere. So on paper, the next man in line is Arman Tsarukyan. He's riding a 5-5 win streak and clearly trying to force his way into a title shot. With Ilia unavailable, I could definitely see Arman getting a title fight against another top contender sometime this year. Max Holloway is another problem at lightweight. He's coming off a decision win against another lightweight vet in Dustin Poirier, and is now scheduled to fight Charles Oliveira for the BMF belt. My thoughts on this, the last thing you'd want after getting knocked out by Ilia is to eat 150 plus significant strikes from Max Holloway. Max can put that kind of pressure on anyone. And because of that, I expect Charles to try and scramble early, get the fight to the ground if he wants to survive. Having said all that, my pick for the lightweight champion in 2026 is Paddy Pimblett. And I'll be honest, I didn't like Paddy when he first came over from Cage Warriors. I just thought, here's another blown up, overhyped champion from a lower caliber organisation. But I've been impressed. He's technically sound, he offers threats everywhere, and he's surprisingly well-rounded. In his last fight against Michael Chandler, he answered the wrestling well, he scrambled effectively, showed the gas tank was there, and proved he can finish fights. Constant back and forth between Arman and Paddy. Exactly the kind of storyline the UFC is waiting to package and sell to us. That's where I see it happening. Paddy claiming his first UFC title and shaking up the lightweight division. Next, we've got welterweight. The current champ, obviously Islam Makhachev. He proved pretty quickly that moving up from lightweight was a breeze to him after absolutely demolishing Jack Della Maddalena. And remember, Jack was the guy who beat Belal Muhammad. For a long time, it felt like nobody could beat Belal. Jack had the perfect game plan, and then Islam just come in and put an end to that narrative. Islam's last loss was all the way back in 2015, and at welterweight, he just looks full, filled out, completely suited for 170. He doesn't look undersized at all, and that's scary for everybody else. There are some serious contenders though. Ian Gary's right there after beating Belal. He's long, rangy, uses his size well at welterweight, and he's definitely in with a shout for the title shot soon. Then you've got two undefeated monsters in Michael Morales and Shavkat Rakhmonov. Morales is riding 19-fight win streak with 3 straight first round finishes. That alone has to put him in the conversation. But Shavkat matches that same 19-fight win streak, and he's been the division's boogeyman for a long time now. Honestly, it feels like he doesn't get booked into these exciting matchups because nobody wants to fight him. He's been shouting for a title shot for ages. There's also a bit of recency bias in the UFC. Carlos Prates, who's ranked number 6, has just knocked out former champion in Leon Edwards back in November. Now, I'm not saying he jumps the line ahead of Shavkat or Morales, but the UFC loves exciting fighters, and Prates definitely fits that bill. With Shavkat being next in line, a fight between Prates and Morales would be an absolute banger. Still, my pick for the welterweight champion in 2026 is Shavkat Rakhmonov. Genuinely think Shavkat is at the top of the contender list and gets his title shot this year. The matchup against Islam is insanely good. Islam brings that heavy wrestling, pressure, control. Shavkat, on the other hand, is unorthodox in his striking. He scrambles well, he controls distance, and he's dangerous pretty much everywhere too. I also think Shavkat is the bigger man. He's fully settled at 170 and just well-rounded in every department. I can see him getting his opportunity and taking it. That's my pick, the welterweight champion by 2026, Shavkat Rakhmonov. Okay, moving on to middleweight. Honestly, this might be the easiest division to call so far for 2026. The current champ is obviously Khamzat Chimaev. He's 15-0. He burst back onto the scene in July 2020, and since then it's just been pure domination. The way he manhandles fully grown men is genuinely frightening, but at the same time, it's so exciting. You just can't miss a Khamzat fight. Outside of Khamzat, middleweight is tricky because the division is just full of guys trading wins and losses with each other. No one has really separated themselves as that clear, undeniable contender. But if anyone's close, it's Nasruddin Imavov. He's probably next in line for the slaughter. I'll give him his respect. He's pretty solid everywhere. But even then, I just don't see him being the guy to take Khamzat's belt. You've got Anthony Hernandez. He's also putting together a strong case quietly. He keeps winning, keeps improving, keeps climbing the rankings. But again, same as Imavov, I still think it's a tough matchup for anyone not named Khamzat Chimaev. And because of that, I honestly think Khamzat's reign at 185 could be a lengthy one. As of right now, I don't see anyone in this division beating him anytime soon. Moving on to light heavyweight. The only person in the UFC with more aura than Khamzat is Alex Pereira. Poton is my pick to be light heavyweight champion in 2026. He's active, he's exciting, and he's literally calling out John Jones for a fight at heavyweight. The guy could realistically fight across 3 weight classes and already have gold in 2 of them. I think when Alex eventually calls it a day, even if his UFC career ends up being relatively short in comparison to others, he's absolutely in the GOAT conversation for me. It's not about how long you're here, it's about what you do in that time, and Alex Pereira has done a lot. The division does have some real contenders though. You've got Yuri Prochazka, is always a must-watch, and he's just put together a 2-fight win streak after losing to Pereira back in 2024. You've got Ankalaev, is another big name. He already beat Alex early this year, so you know he's itching to get another title shot. Azamat is also right there. He's undefeated and only has 1 decision win in his entire UFC career, which tells you everything you need to know. You can't forget Carlos Ulberg either. He's knocking on the door with 7 finishes, an absolute dynamite in his hand. Now here's the funny thing, I genuinely wouldn't be surprised if Alex Pereira does lose the belt at some point this year. A bit like 2025, it wouldn't really shock me. But come the end of the year, I think that bow gets pulled back and he's fully dialed in. His setups, his movement, it almost looks scripted. It feels less like if and more like when. I think we've got maybe 1 more year of Alex Pereira in the UFC, so let's enjoy it while it lasts. Okay, and last but not least, we've got the UFC's heavyweight division. Now the current champ is obviously an injured Tom Aspinall, and because of the way the fight ended with Cyril Gane, I really can't see Tom vacating or just giving up the belt. Knowing the UFC, he'll probably hold the division up for the foreseeable. Yeah, I know. Bad joke. Jokes aside, I still think Tom Aspinall is the best heavyweight in the division, and when he comes back healthy, I fully expect him to prove that again. That said, we can still talk about the other contenders in the division. Realistically, Dana might create an interim title shot while Tom's out. So obviously you've got number 1 contender Cyril Gane, who'd probably prefer to wait for a healthy Aspinall to return. At the same time, he might not want to sit out for too long and be inactive. Then you've got Sergey Pavlovich, currently ranked 3rd, coming off a decision win over another top contender in Waldo Cortez Acosta. Also sitting ranked number 2 is Alexander Volkov, who shocked a lot of people with his win over Jalton Almeida. Now, this is my hot take, and I know it might sound a bit harsh, but I don't think Volkov gets a title or an interim title shot. I honestly think the UFC uses him as a bar tester for the rest of the division at this point in his career, but that's just my opinion. There's always a ton of movement at heavyweight. We say every time, big humans, massive power, tiny 4-ounce gloves, but that's exactly what's always made the division so exciting. On the flip side of that, Walter Walker is bringing something genuinely fresh and exciting. He's coming off 4 straight first round heel hook submissions, which is wild. He definitely needs an ankle snatcher nickname added. Before his UFC debut loss, he was also on a 4-fight TKO streak, so he can spice it up. But that heel hook game is so unique. Honestly, wouldn't surprise me if we see a couple more in 2026. If it's not broke, don't fix it. My pick for heavyweight champion is still Tom Aspinall. Let's hope he just makes a return healthy during this year. So yeah, that's it. My full set of predictions of UFC champions in 2026. It's going to be a wild year, not just because of who's holding the belts, but because of the UFC itself. It's just shaking things up. Moving over to Paramount, ending traditional pay-per-views, and putting on, I think it's 43 fight cards. It's absolutely crazy, and it's only going to create more opportunities for rising stars and big name matchups. I'll be reviewing each card as the year goes on, so make sure you stay tuned. Show some love and drop a comment who you think will be holding gold in 2026. The divisions are stacked, the landscape is changing, and next year is shaping up to be one of the most exciting years in the UFC history. So yeah, let's buckle up and enjoy the ride.